My future son-in-law never tired of asking about property lines. He repeated the question like a mantra every time he visited our ranch in Colorado. I remember him standing by the kitchen window, a cup of expensive coffee in hand, looking across the meadow at the line of cottonwoods where our land ended and a foreign world began. "Robert, where exactly is your boundary?" he asked casually, but his eyes were sharp as a blade. The first time, I dismissed him as a city boy, interested in everything. The second time, I thought maybe he was into surveying. By the fifth time, something sank in my chest, cold and heavy, like a river stone. My Claire, my little girl, just laughed. "Dad, he's just in love with this place. You know those urbanists. But I worked as an engineer for 40 years. I'm used to seeing patterns where others see chaos." And Tyler's behavior pattern emerged before me with the frightening, flawless clarity of a blueprint. He showed up 6 months ago on Thanksgiving. 33, impeccable manners, an expensive cashmere sweater, an investment advisor from Denver. He said all the right things, praised Linda's pie, asked about life on Earth. Too flawless. Linda had passed away 3 years ago. Cancer had taken her swiftly, leaving me alone in this enormous house on the 200 acres we once seemed to have clawed from fate. We bought it for next to nothing. It was a wilderness back then. And now Denver is breathing down our necks, and developers circle above us like vultures, dropping envelopes with breathtaking figures into our mailboxes. But selling? That was her dream, ingrained in every inch of this land by the roots of the lilac she planted with her own hands. Claire understood this. She grew up here, running barefoot through the meadow that now explodes with wild, lush blossoms every spring, a living memory of her mother. After Linda's death, Claire came every weekend, afraid I'd burn with grief. When she met Tyler at some business party, I breathed a sigh of relief. She deserved happiness after that nightmare with her last boyfriend. The engagement came like a bolt from the blue. 4 months, and already a diamond ring on Instagram, a proposal in a posh restaurant. She called me, breathless with delight. I said everything I had to say. "Congratulations, honey. I'm happy for you." And I looked out the window at that very meadow and felt the stone in my heart grow heavier. The wedding was scheduled for the end of September, here at the ranch. Claire wanted to be closer to her mother. There was already a planner, catering, 200 guests on the guest list. Tyler was beaming, eager to help, suggesting improvements. "You know, Robert," he said one Saturday in July, "we could make a stunning ceremony site if we cleared those saplings on the west slope." "Those saplings mark the boundary," I snapped, my fingers clenching. "Yeah, the boundary. And where exactly is it?" Again, like a thin, persistent drill. That evening, after they left, I sat in the office and stared at the yellow deed. 215 acres, 1994, $80,000, our entire savings, our entire youth. Now it was worth close to $5 million, maybe more. I never told Claire the real value. She knew the ranch was ours, debt-free, knew about my pension, but she didn't know about the patents. About that little refrigeration component I invented back in the day. It wasn't glamorous, but the royalties kept rolling in. With some smart investments, it was worth about $8 million. The ranch was just the tip of the iceberg. I lived modestly, drove an old pickup, and mended fences myself. I'd seen how money crippled families. Better to be just Robert from the ranch. But Tyler asked questions, the right questions. The next morning, I called Margaret, my lawyer and friend. "I need to check on someone. Tyler Hutchinson, investment advisor." "Robert, is this about Claire's fiancé?" Her voice grew wary. "Just check." She sighed. "If something's wrong, talk to your daughter." "Not yet," was my reply. 3 days later, she called me into her Boulder office. She closed the door. Her face was serious. "Technically, everything is clean. He is who he says he is, employed, licensed, no criminal record. But," she placed another folder in front of me. I dug deeper. Before Claire, he had 2 engagements, Rebecca Thornton and Sarah Mitchell, from very, very wealthy families. Both engagements broke off shortly after Tyler gained access to the family finances. No lawsuits, just incompatible personalities. The air in the room grew thick and sticky. I ran my finger over unfamiliar, unfortunate names. 5 months of engagement, broken off 2 weeks after meeting with the Thornton family lawyer. 4 months, annulled after my father revised the will. And they didn't do anything? Rich people, Robert. They don't sue. They pay for silence. But through unofficial channels, Rebecca's father said Tyler asked uncomfortable questions about the inheritance, suspected something was wrong, but couldn't prove it. I was overcome with nausea, physically, disgustingly so. But Claire doesn't have that kind of money. Not by herself, Margaret looked at me directly. But if he thinks she'll inherit it, or if he's dug up more about you than you're letting on, Robert, you need to talk to Claire, immediately. But I couldn't, not now. Not without ironclad, irrefutable proof. I saw her happy eyes, her faith in this future. What if I was wrong? What if I, an old, lonely, paranoid man, ruined her happiness with my suspicions? I had to be sure, to the end. That weekend, Tyler arrived to help with the preparations. His silver Audi sat frozen in the gravel driveway like an alien, predatory ship. He easily climbed onto the porch where I sat, as if guarding the world he was trying to take from me. "Robert, do you have a minute?" His smile was flawless and open. I wanted to discuss something important. I invited him onto the porch with a gesture, trying to keep every muscle in my eyes from twitching. "Of course." He sat down opposite me, the very embodiment of a caring future son-in-law. The sun glinted off his neatly trimmed beard. "Look, Robert, I know this can be a touchy subject," he began, his voice taking on a soft, professional tone. "Claire and I talk a lot about the future, about finances, planning, all that grown-up, responsible stuff." He laughed lightly, as if apologetically. "I'm an investment advisor, a professional disease. I'm curious, have you thought about estate planning, so that everything is set up properly for Claire, without any fuss?" My chest tightened, as if I'd swallowed ice water, but my face remained stony, accustomed for 40 years to concealing any calculations. "I have a will," I said neutrally. "That's wonderful, but with an asset like the ranch, perhaps we should consider a trust, much more tax efficient. I'd be happy to help, for free, of course. I'll be starting a family soon." "I'll think about it," I nodded, feeling a quiet anger rising. "And also, Robert, I hope you don't find me intrusive, but at your age, you should think about long-term care. What if something happens? Who will manage this property? The ranch is too much of a burden for one person." There it is, the perfect move. The same game he must have played with Rebecca and Sarah's fathers. Plant a seed of doubt, offer help, penetrate to the very core. And then? I didn't know yet, but I swore to myself I would find out. "Sounds reasonable," I said deliberately slowly, pretending to consider it. "You know what? Let's meet next week. You'll explain everything in detail." Tyler's eyes flashed with such a quick, greedy glint that I barely caught it. "Excellent. I'll prepare the materials. We can truly optimize your situation, Robert." As soon as his Audi disappeared behind the dusty trail, I called Margaret. "I need surveillance." "Robert, is that enough?" Her voice was weary. "He just suggested optimizing my inheritance and hinted at a nursing home. He's taking a stand. I need to know his real plan." The silence on the other end of the line was telling. "Okay, I know someone, a private detective, disciplined and discreet. Find him." Patricia turned out to be worth a fortune, and worth every penny. Within a week, she had call transcripts, text messages, and a map of his movements. "Nothing illegal, Mr. Caldwell," she reassured me. "Just old-fashioned surveillance and a little social engineering." And then, one August evening, she called herself. Her voice was tense as a string. "You need to hear this." She managed, God knows how, to plant a recording device in his car during a routine maintenance check. "It's legal," she muttered. "It's a service diagnostic sensor. It just records audio along the way." Legal subtleties were the least of my concerns right now. I listened to the recording in my office, in the deathly silence broken only by the crackling of logs in the fireplace. Tyler's voice, familiar but now devoid of any saccharine, cold and businesslike. "Yes, I'm back at the ranch. I'm playing the perfect son-in-law. The old man has no idea." Another voice, a husky male one. "Are you sure about the numbers?" Tyler. "Marcus, I've checked the county records 3 times. 215 acres, bought in '94 for next to nothing. Considering how Denver is creeping up here, that's at least 4 million. More likely 5, if he sells it wisely." Marcus. "What about the old man?" Tyler snorted contemptuously. "He definitely has money. Look at this place. No debt, retired, lives alone. He's probably got a couple million saved up in investments, maybe more. His daughter knows nothing. She thinks her daddy is just a simple country pensioner. Marcus, so what's the plan? Tyler said calmly, as if discussing the stock market. I'm marrying Claire in September. For the first year, I'll be the perfect husband and son-in-law. I'll gain his trust. Maybe I'll give him power of attorney for his finances, under the guise of caring. The old man lives alone. Anything can happen. A fall, an accident, a sudden impairment of memory. Before you know it, he'll be in an expensive nursing home. I'll manage his affairs. Claire will inherit everything. And then we'll be divorced before she knows it, and I'll take my half when it's divided. Marcus laughed, a nasty, raspy laugh. You're a cold bastard, Tyler. Tyler, indifferently. I'm a practical businessman. Rebecca was a mistake. Her father figured it out too quickly. Things were better with Sarah, but her old man put everything in a trust. And here? Perfect. Simpleton. No concept of asset protection. Like he's asking to be robbed. I turned off the recording. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from a white, all-consuming rage that demanded immediate action. But I clenched my fists. Rage would ruin everything. For Claire, I needed to think coolly, like him. I called an emergency meeting in my office. Margaret and the impassive Patricia. There's evidence. Now I need a strategy. Margaret, having listened to the recording twice, turned pale. This is a criminal conspiracy. Can I go to the police? And tell Claire her fiancé is a fraud, 3 weeks before the wedding, with 200 guests invited. I interrupted her. She won't believe me. She'll think I'm manipulating her, ruining her happiness out of fear of loneliness. No, she needs to see his true face, hear it with her own ears. He practically admitted to planning your elimination, Robert. Almost isn't proof. A good lawyer will smear that all over the place. He needs to be given the chance to incriminate himself, in front of witnesses, at the wedding. Patricia, who had been silent until then, raised an eyebrow. You want to stage the revelation right during the ceremony? I want Claire to hear this, I said quietly, looking into the dying fireplace. I want her to understand for herself who she's tied her life to, and I want her to have 200 witnesses who won't let him get away with it. We spent the next 2 weeks planning every detail, like bomb disposal experts before the final assault. Patricia transformed the ranch into a kind of camouflaged film set. Tiny cameras like spy bugs, lurking in flower pots and on the branches of old maple trees. Margaret prepared a legal shield, documents that would protect Claire from any repercussions, any consequences. And I played my part, old, trusting Robert, touched by his future son-in-law's concern. We met in my office. Tyler arrived with a leather briefcase, from which he pulled out a stack of neat forms. Here, Robert, I've thought it all through. This power of attorney will allow me to quickly assist with your affairs if things get complicated. And this is the updated will establishing the trust. Claire is the primary beneficiary, and I, as trustee, will ensure everything goes smoothly, without any unnecessary tax losses. I pretended to study the text carefully, feeling each letter on the paper burn in my fingers. And this will save money? Tens of thousands, Robert. Tens. His voice was honeyed and convincing. I nodded slowly, pretending to be a man giving in to the pressure of rational arguments. You know, Tyler, you're probably right. This place is getting too big for me. It's time for a change. That same cold, calculating glint, familiar from the recording, flashed in his eyes. I'm glad you're thinking practically. But here's what I'm curious about, I continued, looking him straight in the eye. You keep asking about boundaries. Why? He didn't even flinch. The lies flowed from him like a polished business presentation. I'm thinking about the future, Robert. If Claire inherits the ranch, we might decide to sell part of the land, leaving just the house and a few acres. There's no point in holding on to something that's not being used. I mean Claire and I just want to help her make informed decisions. I allowed myself to smile, a bitter smile, invisible to him. Of course, family should help family. He left, confident in his victory. I let him take that confidence with him, like a trophy. A week before the wedding, Claire noticed my detachment. Dad, are you okay? You seem distant. I'm just thinking about my mother. I regret that she won't be here for your big day. She hugged me, and her faith in that moment was torture for me. She would be happy for me. Tyler is wonderful. I wanted to scream, shake her, show her those damned notes. But I swallowed the lump in my throat. She should have figured it out on her own. Otherwise, a shadow of doubt about my motives would have remained between us forever. "I'm sure there would have been," I muttered, hating my own weakness. The day before the wedding, Marcus showed up. I recognized his husky voice immediately. He was playing best man, staying at a hotel in town. At the rehearsal dinner, I watched him and Tyler whispering, their laughter now sounding like a death rattle to me. Tyler raised a toast. "To Robert, who welcomed me into the family, and to Claire, who makes me the happiest of people. Tomorrow will be perfect." The glasses clinked. I raised mine, smiling into the mask I'd been hatingly molding onto my face. The wedding day arrived. It was deceptively beautiful. The Colorado September sun cast a golden glow over the aspens, just beginning to turn red, and the air was clear and crystalline. Linda would have adored a morning like this. 200 guests filled the chairs in the meadow. The gazebo, immersed in late asters and dahlias, awaited. I led Claire down the aisle, her hand trembling in mine. Linda's pearls shimmered around her neck. She was radiant. That radiance cut me sharper than any knife. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. "I love you more than anything in the world," I replied, and it was the only honest truth I'd heard in weeks. I took a seat in the front row. The ceremony began. The priest began his speech about love and fidelity. Tyler was impeccable at the altar. His tuxedo, his confident smile, the stance of a man already holding victory in his grasp. And then, at the very climax, as the priest addressed him with the words, "Do you take?" Claire made a strange movement. Her hand reached not for the ring, but for a small envelope tucked into the folds of her dress. She handed it to me. Our gazes met. Hers held not happy tears, but a primal, silent terror. I unfolded the paper. 3 words, scrawled in her nervous handwriting, struck me in the heart. "Daddy, help me." Time stood still. I looked at her deathly pale face, and understood everything. She already knew. I rose from my seat. My voice, low and harsh, cut through the solemn silence. "Stop. Stop the ceremony." A murmur of confusion swept through the rows. Tyler turned sharply, his mask slipping momentarily, revealing irritation. "Robert, what's going on?" "Claire," I said softly, addressing only her. "What happened?" She took a shuddering, sobbing breath, and the truth poured out of her in a broken, terrified torrent. "I heard him. Yesterday I wanted to surprise him. I went into his room. He talked to Marcus. He said he'd arrange an accident for Dad, that he'd get power of attorney and take everything, that I'm too stupid to understand." Her voice broke off. Someone in the crowd screamed. Tyler's face twisted into a grimace of rage and fear. "Claire, are you crazy? This is hysteria. You've got it all wrong." He grabbed her hand, and the movement was so abrupt, so commanding, that my heart sank. But I didn't have time to take a single step. 2 men in civilian clothes rose from the front row, seemingly out of nowhere. Sheriff Ben and his deputy, old friends of mine whom I'd asked to be here. Their hands, firm and unforgiving, fell on Tyler's shoulders. "Tyler Hutchinson, you are being held for questioning on suspicion of fraud and conspiracy to commit criminal mischief." The sheriff's calm, metallic voice rang out. Marcus, seated among the guests, darted toward the aisle, but didn't make it 10 steps. Patricia, waiting for him at the edge of the meadow, simply tripped him. He fell to the ground, and her knee instantly pinned his back to the grass. The next hour descended into deafening chaos. Guests screamed, cried, and pulled out their phones. Tyler screamed about slander and his lawyers, his voice lost in the general din. I held Claire, who was sobbing, torn between shock and relief, her body racked with powerful, uncontrollable spasms. Margaret appeared as if by magic, folder in hand, calmly and methodically presenting the officers with copies of the records, reports, our entire meticulously compiled collection of evidence. Finally, police cars, their blue lights flashing, whisked Tyler and Marcus away. The guests, shocked, began to disperse, some with sympathetic looks, others with greedy curiosity in their eyes. The catering staff, confused, began packing up the untouched food trucks, the aroma of which now seemed bitter and alien. Claire and I sat on the porch steps, still in our ridiculous festive outfits, she in her wedding dress, me in a tight suit, my tie long since removed. We watched as the sun, huge and crimson, sank behind the jagged peaks of the Rocky Mountains, painting the world the color of old wine. "I'm sorry, Dad." Her voice was hoarse with tears and quiet as the rustle of a fallen leaf. "I should have told you sooner. I've known for 2 days. I overheard their conversation and I was just frozen. I didn't want to believe it. I made up excuses. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe he had an explanation. I walked into this ceremony like I was going to the gallows, and I was going to say yes until you handed me that note. At the last possible second. Why, Claire? Why didn't I say anything?" She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara. "Because I was afraid. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm ruining my life, my love, because of a stupid mistake?" But as I stood there, under that canopy of flowers, preparing to speak, I realized I couldn't. I couldn't commit to a man in whose eyes I saw only calculation. I wrote those 3 words and prayed you'd sense something was wrong. I hugged her, feeling her thin shoulders tremble beneath the delicate lace. "I get it. I've been guessing for months." She pulled away, her eyes wide and red from tears, staring at me. "You knew?" "I suspected. I hired a detective. I have a recording of him and Marcus planning the accident and dividing my money. I was going to stop this wedding today anyway, even without your note." Her face was a mixture of pain, relief, and a new wave of resentment. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have believed it," I breathed out. "You would have thought the old man wouldn't let his girl go, wouldn't trust her choice. You needed to come to this conclusion yourself. See his true face with your own eyes. My job was simply to be there and catch you when you realized everything." She laid her head on my shoulder again, and her voice became muffled, full of shame. "I feel like such a fool." "You're not a fool. You're a person who looks for the good in people. It's not a weakness, it's a rare and beautiful strength. It's just that Tyler, he's a professional, a con man, a fortune hunter. You're not his first victim, and I'm afraid not his last." "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now there will be testimony in court. The prosecutor is already reviewing the evidence. Tyler and Marcus are facing conspiracy and fraud charges. We'll return the gifts, apologize to the guests, and life, as usual, will move on." We sat in silence, listening to the early evening breeze rustle through the poplars. Then Claire asked something she'd apparently been thinking about for a while. "Dad, are we rich?" I couldn't help but laugh, wearily and bitterly. "Why?" "Tyler kept saying you had a ton of money. I always thought we had everything, but modestly. And now I wonder what you've been shielding me from all this time." I sighed, looking at the darkening meadow, the outline of our house. "Your mom and I bought these 200 acres for $80,000 in '94. It's worth about $4 million now. Plus the patents for my engineering designs. They bring in a steady income. Plus successful investments over the past 30 years. Total, about $8 million in assets." Her jaw literally dropped. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "8, and you drive a rickety pickup truck and wear flannel from the supermarket. Money is nothing more than a tool to me, Claire. Your mother and I grew up penniless. We saw how wealth cripples families, poisons souls. We decided to live simply, to enjoy what we have, not to flaunt it. I wanted you to grow up a normal, good person, not a spoiled heiress. Your future is secured. It's all set up in a trust that no future husband can touch without your express consent. I arranged everything so long ago, after I saw what your aunt went through. I wanted to protect you, always." She was silent for a long time, digesting. Then her voice trembled. "I wish Mom were here." "Oh yes, darling. I miss her every day." 3 months later, Tyler and Marcus appeared in court. The charges? Conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted financial exploitation. Tyler, terrified of prison, took a plea bargain. 5 years probation, a huge restitution for investigative costs, and a lifetime ban from working in finance. Marcus got 2 years. Justice, as it were. Claire returned to the ranch to lick her wounds. She saw a therapist, learning to trust people and herself again. She became quieter, sadder, but a new, mature depth appeared in her eyes. She started dating again, but this time her choice was conscious and deliberate. And I stayed here. Still in the same house, driving the same pickup truck, but I changed a few things. I expanded Linda's garden, planted new, red roses, and installed a stone bench with her name. Sometimes Claire and I sit there in the evenings, and I tell her stories about a woman who believed in the ground beneath her feet more than in the gold in the bank, who preferred planting flowers to buying diamonds. "Dad," she asked one evening, looking at the sunset, "do you regret hiding the truth about the money from me? Maybe if I'd known, I would have seen through Tyler at first sight." "Maybe," I replied, "or maybe you would have only attracted men like him, tormented by suspicions. Does he love me or my fortune? The way things turned out, you were simply being yourself, making your choice. And when that choice proved fatal, you found the strength to ask for help. That's worth more to me than any million." She snuggled close to me, and in her quiet, "I love you, Dad," I could hear all the pain, all the gratitude, and all the hope that our best life was yet to come. The sun had set, leaving the sky in ash-purple tones. Somewhere in the tall grass, a coyote screamed. Linda's garden, untamed and generous, was fragrant in the darkness, just as she had intended. Money can't buy such moments, but it can provide a safe haven where such moments are possible, not for show, for protection. And I will protect my daughter and her mother's memory until my last breath. That is the only true wealth.